Good morning, good morning, good morning. I know you've been eyeing all this stuff up here, but we'll get to that in a minute. So before, a couple of housekeeping items here, upcoming events. So next Wednesday, September 18th at 1 o'clock, we have the first of our healthy cooking seminars with Dr. Maureen Dempsey. There are still some seats available, so if you're interested, give me a call or talk to me after the presentation. That starts at 1 o'clock. There'll be the demonstration, there'll be recipes, hints, and of course, tastings. So that's a two-part thing. The second part is October 16th. Then, on Tuesday, which is September 17th, over at St. Margaret Mary Parish on Ringer Road, is Senior Aging My Way Resource Fair. So SAJE is going to have a booth there, so come by and say hello. It starts at 9 o'clock. Flu shots will be available by Mercy Health Center. And over 65 booths of senior resources. So I'm sure if those that like to collect little things, there'll be lots of pens and giveaways. We have some goodies that we'll be giving away too.
If I could interject, the resource fair is really trying to connect caregivers with the agencies that are out there, particularly if you're dealing with or know someone dealing with dementia or Alzheimer's, that there's so many resources out there, and often you don't know where to go and where to look for. You come to the fair, there'll be a complete booklet to take home with all the different agencies that are there that you can look over and say, boy, I know someone could use this, or I could use this, or whatever. So if you got time on Tuesday, 9 to 11 that morning, stop by. I think you will find it very helpful.
Okay, and then one last item. Our brunch meetup is going to be September 23rd, and that's 11 o'clock at the barn, at the Crestwood Barn over on Sappington. Just as courtesy to the restaurant, I'm going to make reservations, or actually it's probably just going to be a heads up for them, since I don't think they take reservations per se. So give me a call if you're interested at the office. The phone number is in, I think that's a Monday. Okay. So you can give me a call here at the office. The information's in our newsletter, on our website, and I'm trying to put things up on Facebook, so if you're a Facebook person, it'll be there. After Dave's presentation, we have lunch downstairs, so I hope you have hearty appetites. Thank you. Yes?
Is your Facebook page listed under SAJE?
It's SAJE Senior Ministry. SAJE is with a J. Any other questions? So I will let Dave take over.
Well, good morning and welcome. As you see, a history of baseball in St. Louis according to Dave Eshelman, so therefore it may not all be perfectly accurate, but according to my recollection and my years of working in the industry, we should have a fun time this morning talking about baseball and the Cardinals and all of that. So, hit it. Ready. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. I need some peanuts and crackers, Jack. I don't care if I ever get back to you. Just look for the home team. They don't win it the same. 1, 2, 3 strikes are out of the old ball game. All right. Okay, later. All right. Who was the inventor of baseball? Abner Doubleday. That is what they say. Cooperstown, New York, 1839. That's at least what the National Baseball Hall of Fame claims. The actual origins of baseball really go back much further, probably into the 18th century. In England, the children played a game called rounders, and you're probably familiar, you've heard about cricket, which plays with kind of a flat bat and a ball and takes several weeks to play one whole game. It's a crazy game. The term baseball is actually found in a poem by a man named John Newbery in 1744. And there were illustrations with this little poem showing posts where you would normally have a baseball bat. So there were 4 posts going around. So the history of baseball really goes back much farther than what was claimed. The idea of Abner Doubleday starting baseball took place. There was a commission in like 1904, something like that. A.G. Spaulding, who had the Spaulding Sporting Goods, was the head of this commission that went back and tried to research the beginnings of baseball. And they knew a man who knew Doubleday and talked about all this. And therefore, that's why the Baseball Hall of Fame is in Cooperstown now, because that's where Doubleday was from. He was actually a Civil War major, I believe, in the Army. But baseball at the time of the American Revolution, there are some notes from some of the English colonels and so forth who, for recreation, played ball. So variations of baseball have been played in schoolyards and campuses and kind of all around for a long time. The first organized baseball team was the New York Knickerbockers in 1845. And many of the existing rules that they used to play back then are still the same existing rules of today. In 1854, revisions of some of these rules was made, and some of the ones that still exist are like the dimensions of the infield. The 90 feet for the bases, 60 feet 6 inches from the pitcher's mound to the plate. That all goes back now over 150 years. The same rules. In 1865, there was a convention of amateur teams that was first came about. 91 different amateur teams got together, and St. Louis was one of those teams. Major League Baseball first came about as what it was known in 1876. The National League Professional Baseball Club was formed, and that included like Chicago, Cincinnati. I'm not sure what some of those others were, but that was the first actual baseball major league, and so then they commemorated that National League in 1976 wore a patch commemorating 100 years of the forming of the National League. The American League, on the other hand, was a formation. First, there was a called the Western League was formed because all the teams were, Chicago and East. Then some Western teams started coming in, and then in 1901, the actual Western League was then named the American League. So the American League really started in 1901, or possibly we could say in 1893. So that's kind of where your baseball tradition came from. So, a marriage made in heaven, baseball heaven. You probably know the logo on the right, Rawlings Sporting Goods, a longtime St. Louis company. There on the left is the Levy Company. Whereas you might not recognize the name or know anything about them, you've actually witnessed and seen them on TV or live and in person your whole life. For instance, your Cardinal uniforms. Levy has done work for the Cardinals and did all the embroidery up to about 2002 from the 20s on out of St. Louis. All this embroidery work done here in town, often in the early days on Rawlings uniforms. Today, Nike is doing the uniforms. I'll show you some of those a little bit later, but so there's been a whole transition of all of that. Levy has done things like, well, you've seen your St. Louis Blues. So the Levy Company, which I've worked for like 50 years, so has probably been part of baseball for probably over 100 years. And like I say, I've been there a long time. Started in 1971 part-time. So we'll tell you a little bit. The Levy story kind of connects with the next picture. So Leacock Sporting Goods. Leacock Sporting Goods was formed by R.J. Robert James Leacock in 1902. It was located in the 800 block of Pine Street in St. Louis. And then in 1917, they moved to a 4-story building, 1919 Locust Street. And according to an article that I read 2011, that building, a 4-story building, they've been trying to get that on the historical record so that would stay there. Now, Leacock Sporting Goods did not manufacture anything. They were kind of like a hardware store where they bought other products, put it in there, and they sold. So they sold footballs, baseballs, exercise balls, you kind of name it. But they took whoever made the products, like Wilson or Rawlings or wherever it came from, then they put their own label on it. This is a baseball glove from the 1920s. You can't really read it well. In here it does say Leacock, and the glove style was called Ball Hawk. If you'd like to pass that around, you may. So that was Robert James Leacock. If you flip back to the last page, Levy has been known as R.J. Levy Athletic Lettering Company. And so Bob Levy, who was the first R.J. Levy, worked for his uncle, R.J. Leacock. And as the story goes, he had a feud with his uncle over his uncle wouldn't let him off on his birthday. And so Bob went off on his own way and decided to start his own business. So with his wife, Alice, they bought a couple sewing machines, a couple embroidery machines, and put them down in their basement and began to decorate uniforms. Bob was an artist. He designed many things. Later in his life, this came about. This is the Atlanta Flames hockey jersey. He worked with the club to design this A logo here for the Atlanta Flames. Of course, involved, the Blues logo is somewhat different than what it was when it was originally done. When they had their first Winter Classic here in St. Louis for the Blues, we were able to find a record of some old sample jerseys that were presented to the Blues to kind of choose from, which Bob Levy had also designed. And what else we got in here? Los Angeles Dodgers. Bob Levy basically designed this style of script. And what's interesting with the script kind of lettering is that everything is pretty symmetrical. You can make your different letters, your A's and your G's and your centers and all these things are all very symmetrical and therefore just very pleasant to look at, as opposed to you've seen some stuff that's Yeah, kind of a scruffy looking. He was quite an artist. So in 1935, Bob Levy made a connection with Rawlings Sporting Goods, and from that time on to even this day, one time we were the sole supplier of all the lettering for Rawlings Sporting Goods. So Rawlings made uniforms. They didn't do any decoration on it. My very first job at Levy was to check in the uniforms when they came over in these big bins, and Levy is located, if you still have a place down on 2720 Washington. Rawlings had the facility there at Jefferson and Delmar, so it's about 2 blocks away. And they'd bring the stuff in from, Licking, Missouri and Avon, Missouri, where the manufacturing was, to their offices down on Delmar there at Jefferson. And the guy would bring in the truck, unload these bins, and I would go through the bins and pull out the orders of jerseys. And then I would find the order for the letters and numbers that would be made to put on those jerseys, match them up, tell the art department the jerseys are here, we can begin production on the lettering, and then we would cut the letters and numbers and put them on and send them off. So like if Lindbergh High School, for instance, had an order of 20 baseball jerseys, I'd find those jerseys, and maybe in Lindbergh, I think that one of the colors are green, so maybe they had the word Lindbergh in green on their baseball uniforms. And whatever the style was, we would design the style, cut it out, put it on, they lay it on there, sew it on, and when it's all done, ship it on off back to the school, and the kids would go out and play ball. Let's see. So I showed you a little bit. So through its history, Rawlings, like I say, has been a major part of the Levy Company. But even today, Levy Company has worked with Wilson Sporting Goods, back in the day, Spalding, today, Majestic, Nike. Levy does a lot of, if you turn on, you watch Mizzou football, Mizzou basketball, the uniforms come to St. Louis, we still put on the numbers and names on the back of many college team uniforms, both in basketball and in football. So the stuff you see on TV is the stuff that comes out of the Levy Company. We don't do a whole lot of retail work. It's actually the stuff that's on the field and on the basketball courts or volleyball courts or whatever. So as unknown as it is, it's really a big player in what happens out there in the sporting world. Let's see. Well, so we'll give you throw out a couple other names. North Carolina and Duke, you're aware of. You see those uniforms for basketball? We do the uniforms in St. Louis. Notre Dame, Naval Academy, those are Under Armour schools. We have an operation in New York, where I work for the company in New York, that makes the garments for Under Armour, and then St. Louis makes the letters and sends them to New York. They put them on the jersey. So if you watch Notre Dame play ball, their football games, their basketball games, the Naval Academy, Maryland, you just almost can't turn on a game and there won't be somebody, one of those teams where the Levy Company has had something to do with the uniform that's on the air. So let's go on to baseball. We'll go on to the evolution, one more, the evolution of the uniform. Baseball uniforms go back to 1849. The New York Knickerbockers wore the first uniform, lettered up uniform in 1849. I think the game was April the 4th, 1849. Previous to that, the baseball teams did not want to wear uniforms because, in the words of a article I found from Smithsonian Magazine, was that the players didn't want to look like a flock of birds on the field, that is, all looking the same. The Knickerbockers in their first game, they wore blue wool pants, a flannel top, and straw hats. That was the first baseball uniforms. But as time went on, the teams wanted to be identified. So therefore, they began to wear different color uniforms, different styles of uniforms, and all just to be proudly baseball players. One of the early styles, if you can see that one up in the upper left-hand corner, it's got a little logo up there, was a shield. And they would put a shield with an initial or a couple initials for the city that they were playing for. That followed, and the next one, they went to a lace-up jersey. And whereas it looked very fancy and so forth, it was not much fun to get off and get on for the players. So that kind of went away fairly quickly. By 1900, the third one on the top, you have a button-up type jersey. And that became, really, over the years, a standard for baseball uniforms. There were different types of collars at times. Sometimes they actually had a collar like this on the uniforms early on. Then they went to something a little more fancy like here. Eventually, you just came up to the standard V-neck, a little scoop kind of neck jersey. And at different times, vests were introduced and worn. Figuring a vest would give you a little more mobility in your running and swinging and all that than the sleeve jersey would. So I showed you the zip-up jersey. Those really probably introduced in the 1930s and 40s. Didn't last real long. The pullover type jersey. Here we go. Which you've seen the Cardinals wear many times. Came about in the 70s. But by 1993, pretty much this is the standard jersey, a button-up jersey now. Most every team wears one. One of the things with the button-up jersey that for a lettering decorator is making the split of the logo so that it looks continuous when you're looking at the logo from the field and from the TV. So sometimes you have to do a little cheating of your letters. This here, so you kind of see A over here, and then the R on the other side going across. So you'd have to do little tricks, maybe make one letter a little bigger than another, one a little bit smaller, just to make it all work. But you're all here to hear about your St. Louis Cardinals. So we're all familiar with the birds on the bat, the iconic trademark of the St. Louis Cardinals. But in its early years, they were known as the St. Louis Cardinals. Any idea why they were called the Cardinals?
1901 is a lovely shade of cardinal.
It's a lovely shade of cardinal red. The STL, like we saw on those shields and that, they wore an STL on their cap, they wore an STL on their chest, and it was made out of cardinal felt. And so they were known as the Cardinals. And that was very typical because you had, at the time, the Red Sox, the White Sox. There were some teams like the Maroons that were out there one time. So there were color names, the Browns. There were color names were often used. But the story of the birds on the bat, which is what we all identify with the Cardinals, was born in Ferguson, Missouri, in 1921. The concept was created by a young woman, Miss Allie Mae Schmidt. She was assigned to decorate tables at the Ferguson Presbyterian Church for the 5th Annual Men's Fellowship meeting, and the featured speaker was going to be Branch Rickey. You know the name Branch Rickey? At the time, he was vice president of the Cardinals, and of course, more well-known for his breaking the color barrier with Jackie Robinson when he went to work for the Dodgers, the Brooklyn Dodgers. So as the story goes, Ms. Schmidt was trying to decide what to put on the table as a table decoration for when Ricky came to speak. And she looks out the window and she sees 2 redbirds on these branches. And she goes, "That's it. That's it." So she goes and she cuts out little cardboard redbirds, gets some branches, lays them out on the white tablecloths of all the tables, puts the birds in place. Branch Rickey comes to speak. He was so impressed by the design that he commissioned Edward Schmidt, who was Allie Mae's father, who worked for a printing company, to design a similar type design for the Cardinal uniforms. The design was unveiled for the season opener in 1922. So up to that time, they were the Cardinals, STL. They might have had the word Cardinals on there, but it was not nothing to do with the birds and the bat. So the design was created, and they played their first game against the Pittsburgh Pirates, and amazingly, they won that game 10-1. Here's what the Post-Dispatch reported about that day. Fans will receive an eye shock when the new Cardinals dawn on them. It will be by far the gaudiest bit of baseball heraldry that ever dazzled a fan's eyes. Nobody had designed anything like this in baseball before. And then interestingly, the following day after the game, the Pittsburgh Press noted that the Pirates played the Cardinals and Branch Rickey's Redbirds. So the Cardinals' bird on the bats and the term Redbirds came about within 2 days of each other in 1922. Going back, if we go back to the Leacock slides, Pastor, one more back. That middle jersey there was that first 1922 jersey, and that was done by Leacock Sporting Goods. In fact, the first showing of the jersey was in the window of the Leacock store down on Locust Street here in St. Louis. I mean, what a rich history St. Louis has in baseball. So let's look a little bit at some of the designs. The birds on the bat we are all familiar with, but it hasn't always been the same. Now, if we look at that, the one right there, the 1922 one, the bat is black, the lettering is red, and the birds are red. As time went on, as you can note, all this gets decorated with a navy outline on it. In those days, it was just a solid red. So navy became like the secondary color for the Cardinals over time. So, and as you've seen the, on the pullovers, you had the navy white and red stripes on the collar and on the sleeves. So, well, how do we go? Let's go down the line on this a little bit. What do we have here? All right, this here, zip up front, this is a replica made for the movie 42. The company out in California that was commissioned to make the uniforms called us up and said, hey, can you embroider the 1947, I guess 47 was when the Jackie Robinson first played. So when the movie, they were playing the different teams. So they needed Cardinal uniforms, they needed Dodger uniforms, and there were, all the different teams. They played the Phillies and all of that. So they had lots of different uniforms. So we made these uniforms. Got a red Shandy's number 2 on it. And this is my little memento, because they said, well, we had a couple extra jerseys. Dave, would you like to have one? So jersey made by Sports Robe for the movie 42, embroidery by R.J. Leby. And that's one of my little treasures that I have. Here we have a sample of the 1944. Actually, we got that up on the slide too, Pastor, if you want. On that one, yeah, we'll get back. That one there. Stan Musial, 1944. Number 6. Now this is a replica. This is not a replica. This is from the Mitchell and Ness Company out of Philadelphia. I have a little story about them later. I will tell you about our long relationship with Mitchell Ness and Peter Capolino. Again, here we have a black bat. We got the birds kind of sticking out either side. So a lot of different changes over the years.
Excuse me, Dave, we got a question over
Yes.
here.
Yes.
44 was a streetcar series. Why was it called that?
I think. Oh yeah, Cardinals and the Browns. This is an authentic Browns jersey a friend of mine sent to me to show off to you. Rawlings label here, made in Rawlings. The lettering done at the Leby Company, and the brownie patch on here. All that's a hand embroidered patch. And you'll have time if you want to come up afterwards or come and take a look and look at any of these samples that are up here. You're just welcome to do that. So we had, let's see. We showed you in the 1990. Well, really started in about 71. They went to the first pullover jersey, and that was the end of the kind of the flannel era. They had gone from where do I got here? Where's my 44? Do I have? Yeah, here we go. So this is a replica 67 Lou Brock jersey. Mm-hmm.
What is flannel?
Flannel? Wool. The jerseys were wool, and now they did, back in the 40s, they were big, heavy wool. And that's what we did when we made this 1947 sample, and it is heavy. It was, you sweat a lot. Then they did start making a blend of wool and so forth. I don't know what the whole blend was, but then they became lighter weight. But they still were, a lot of wool in the garment. This happened up until about 1971, and that's when the Cardinals went to their first jersey. A little story with all of that. So 1971, that's when I first came to St. Louis, and I took a part-time job at the Leby Company. That spring, we decorate all the uniforms, send them off. The team plays their first week, and the equipment manager, Buddy Bates, all of a sudden he's out of the door, knocking on the door. He's got this whole load of jerseys. He brings them in, lays them on the table. Well, the numbers at the time were made out of a twill, and I don't know if I can show you here. Anything here? Nothing. Well, for that purpose, the polyester jersey doesn't shrink. Now, when you had the flannel jersey and you put the number on, the number shrunk, the jersey shrunk altogether. 1 week into the season, the backs of the jerseys were all like this because the number shrunk and the jersey didn't shrink. So we had quite a mess on our hands. What developed from that was that the Levy company had to figure out, well, what are we going to do? Well, first we had to just keep replacing numbers for a long time. The numbers at the time were called tackle twill. Tackle twill because it was a fabric designed back in the day for football pants. And when the football team started putting numbers on jerseys, well, they said, well, if we got a black top and a gold pant, let's put the gold, cut up the gold pant and put a gold number on the jersey. So they had a number, and hence the term tackle twill became it's really kind of the trademark name for twill, generic, any kind of twill lettering that's put onto jerseys called tackle twill. But the tackle twill with rayon cotton wouldn't work anymore. So Levy Company developed a company called Webster Fabric, made polypro twill. Took and weaved the same product out of polyester, but polyester on polyester, nothing shrinks, everything stays the same, and it all looks good all year long. See how we're doing time-wise here? Okay, we got a couple minutes left yet. Yes, sir.
The uniforms of the 1940s, they had real baggy pants.
They had real baggy pants.
The ball strikes. The uniform is the same as hitting the man.
Yes, if you, yeah. But again, and they'd get those big sleeves and stick it out, and the ball would hit the sleeve, and you get first base. But the players of now, they like it, much more tight fitting and so forth, and you see that, much today.
I would imagine the uniforms today are much less expensive to produce than the ones earlier.
Well, it possibly, they're actually very expensive. I would say, today there's this embroidery, you might be charging $50 for the embroidery on there. Now, the baseball teams, there's all this stuff. When I first came to Levy, the teams could go to anybody to get their uniforms from. So a lot of the teams in the East had a company called McAuliffe did their uniforms. Rawlings did a lot of the Midwest, Wilson Sporting Goods some, so they could go anywhere. In 1985, Major League Baseball really became a consolidated organization and took it over. And Rawlings Sporting Goods got the first Major League Baseball contract. And so starting in 1985 through 89, Rawlings made every uniform for Major League Baseball. Levy, where I worked, we lettered every uniform for Major League Baseball. In 1990, the contract went to Russell Athletic, and I went down and made a pitch to Russell Athletic. We got the business. For the next 10 years, we did all the baseball lettering. And interestingly, that same year, Champion Sporting Goods got an NBA basketball license, and I went there, made a pitch for them, and we did all of baseball and all of NBA basketball through the year 1990 to 2000. So I love my sports. Let's see. Well, let's note that picture there. I've got one of those jerseys there. As I said, the birds on the bat have changed a lot over the years. We have on the left there a 1964 jersey, World Series year. Now, if you can note, look at the 45 to the 49 on the 1967 jersey. You see the difference? The numbers are bigger, and it's a different style. You have what's called a full block style. It's got a block on the bottom. Now, not every digit had a block on it, but a 1, a 4, a 7, what else? 1, 4, 7. I should know all this at my top. But they have blocks on them. Plain block has no blocks on them. So they went to a plain block number, and they made it bigger also in 1967 from 1964. And you would have to look close up there. In the 1967, see the feathers on the bird? It's behind the bat. And this one is over the bat. It's reversed in the 1964 one. The feathers on this side are over the bat, and it's under the bat there. Why they made the changes, I don't know. I guess just something different. Oh, and one last thing here. When they started the birds on the bat, only 2 years have the birds never been on the bat, on the uniform, since 1922. The first one was 1927, and the Cardinals had won their first World Series. And so they wore, a bird kind of similar to this, a little bit bigger, more elongated, and it was kind of a circle patch, and it said World Champions on it, and they wore that for that 1927 season. Well, in 1956, for whatever reason, somebody got the idea, we're going to change the uniforms.
Is that the general manager?
Probably the general manager probably made this decision, and they put the word Cardinals on the front, put the sluggo bird on the sleeve, so you had the bird in the bat, but you had birds on the bat. There was such an outroar in St. Louis over this that, do we have that picture up there? I don't know, do I have the, nope, I guess I don't have that. Oh, that's right, because I have, in 19, then, yeah, right there. So that was a drawing of the 1956 one, and then right away, 1957, we get the birds in the bat again, and it has never changed since then. As you saw on this one, I have somewhere here, I had a picture here. Where did I lose it to? I don't know. Well, oh, no, I don't. Oh, well. The word St. Louis, this only started recently when the Cardinals went to this Saturday uniform. So they put the St. Louis out there, and they do this on the home and the road jersey, because it was very typical where the Cardinals didn't really do that much. They wore Cardinals on a home jersey and a road jersey. As you watch other games, you'll see, Chicago, Boston, New York, and then on the home uniform, you get the actual team name, whether you're the Red Sox or the Cubs or the Braves or whatever you happen to be. But so the Cardinals started using the St. Louis. One last little. This is the current season, and again, this is a current uniform made by Nike now, and there was an uproar this year when this uniform came out. A couple things. The jersey is much lighter. The Cardinal logo, up till this year, was always embroidered directly into the shirt, except on the batter's shirts. The batter's shirts, we always put a patch on there because you had to have a white outline to kind of see it on the red batter's shirt. But on the game shirts, always embroidered directly into the shirt. This is a patch. You can see it's got its engraved fabric, and so it is not embroidered directly into the shirt. You can pass that around, and you come up and look at it later.
I don't care for this St. Louis. St. Louis.
St. Louis, you see a lot of these new kind of jerseys that they are producing. This is so they can sell more retail product. Yeah, that's all. It's all about making more money, and but it does offer different looks, and young people like all that, and you get all these young puppies at these new companies. They all want to, make their mark, and they find new ways to do it.
The toilets in Europe are called the loo.
Yeah, it's called the loo.
That's where the Cardinals are.
Real quickly, let me give you a little bit of info on the back. On the back, names came, Stan Musial, number 6, we all know that. Stan Musial wore his name on the back of his jersey only 1 year. Cardinals didn't put their names on the back of their jersey until 1963. That was his last year. So he had one jersey where he had Musial on the back of the shirt. Numbers on the shirts really didn't come into vogue until somewhere in the 20s. The Yankees were, I think, maybe the first to do it. And you know why Babe Ruth was number 3? He batted third. Now everybody shifts, and DiMaggio was 4, or Gehrig was 4, and so whoever was in the lineup was 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you change the lineup, you kind of mess things up, but that's kind of how they did that. And so. They'll figure out something. A lot of teams have a lot of retired numbers, and that does come into play. The Cardinals have many of them, but they're now. We didn't really see a lot of numbers in the 60s and 70s and so forth. Now I don't really see too many number 80s yet, but if they have to use it, they'll start using those numbers. Couple quick things. About the lettering and so forth. Original lettering was actually scissor cut out patterns. The ladies would cut the numbers out with a little stamping pattern, and then Mr. Levy, the son, who was Robert James II, and we know him as Jim. So we had Bob and we have Jim, and now there's the third generation who's called Jimmy. They all are J. Levy's. But Jim developed a kind of jigsaw cutting machine. He took a straight needle sewing machine, put a knife blade in it, and when the ladies originally, every pattern was hand cut. And they would cut out each one by hand, and then if it was 2 colors, then they would lay it on another piece of felt and hand cut it out, all by scissor. He designed this jigsaw machine with the help of multiple boring, which were right behind the Rawlings factory off of Delmar there. And he would take the fabric, stack up 15 layers of material. They would run a blueprint pattern, staple it to the fabric, and then the ladies learned, instead of sewing, they took this knife blade and they would cut out the pattern. Now you had 15 identical patterns, faster than 15 than one at a time, and all identical looking, and it really made the mark for the company into the business, because he could multiply uniforms much more rapidly than other companies could do. Then the die cut came along, and you made these steel dies, and you had the big clicker, and you put this on top, and you could cut 5 or 6 layers at a time, ka-chunka, 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 and you'd have all identical numbers, and you'd have, we've got still drawers of the patterns from the, particularly the 70s and 80s, when every Major League Baseball team, we had a pattern for Athletics, for Astros, for you name it, we had everybody's pattern. And then water jets came in, and you could put fabric in a machine, and with high pressure water, you could cut out designs very, very rapidly. Again, very identical. And now it's done by lasers today. So we have, you come up here and see a lot of patches, patches on the sleeve. Many times they're commemorative. If you want to just take a note, the AAB Jr., August A. Bush. So when he died, that's the patch. We made that patch, sewed it on the jerseys, and that's what they wore. Other commemorative patch. There's the Jackie Robinson from 50 years when they did that. When the Cardinals were down in Jupiter, and they got the Roger Dean Stadium, that's that upper left-hand patch. There's Harry Carey patch for the Cubs. There's a KC patch there. So, the 41 was for when Eddie Matthews died. He was a Milwaukee and Atlanta Brave player. So we get a lot of requests for patches to put on that commemorated someone and particularly their passing. Well, I got time. Do I have time for a couple quick stories? So in the dugout. Now, the first thing, you see the players in the dugout, don't ever go into a dugout after a game. It is the filthiest, messiest place. Now, fortunately today, there's not as much chewing tobacco used, but sunflower seeds and you name it, when you go in after the game, wait for them to power wash the dugout before you go back into the dugout. It's quite a nasty little place to go to. Flip up to the next one, if you would, Pastor. So, I'll tell you the story on the right first. Dave Concepcion. I was interviewed a number of times. Channel 2, 4, 5 would come out in the spring and want to do a thing on the Cardinal uniform before the season started. So I tour them around the factory. And one year, it came up, and we were talking about, well, Mr. Levy, Jim Levy had designed a new style of lettering. We called it thick and thin. And so we had a letter style. It's about 3.5 inches tall, and but 7 and under. So if your name had 7 and under letters, you had a wider letter. If you had 8 and more letters, we designed a thin letter. So it was a thick and thin alphabet. But at that time, the Cincinnati Reds were using this 4.5 inch letter. And in the conversation with the person from the TV station, I said, yeah, we designed this new lettering to make it really, the uniforms look good. I said, but Cincinnati, they have this huge letter. And Dave Concepcion, if you read, you see that N on Concepcion, it goes way down to the halfway past the bottom of the number 3 there. And I said, man, they need to do something about that. Now, I never claimed to be anybody or anything, but I'll tell you this. The next season, this got picked up in Cincinnati, and the next year, they went to the thick and thin lettering in Cincinnati. So I was a bit of an influencer, not even knowing it. But the picture on the left, that is Rhonda Shear. She's wearing a Mitchell & Ness uniform. I told you about Mitchell & Ness. Many of these sample jerseys here are Mitchell & Ness jersey out of Philadelphia. Peter Capolino was the owner. I took a call from him in the late 1980s. And he said, Dave, I answered, I said, I'm Dave Eshelman, right after hours. And I said, I'm Dave Eshelman. He said, well, I've been trying to get a hold of Mr. Levy, and he won't return my calls. And I need to make some samples because I want to make replica baseball uniforms because there's so many people who would like to have old-time uniforms. But I need to have a baseball license. I need some samples made. So we had done in 1972 maybe, the Colt 45s, the Houston Colt 45s. They were the Colt 45s 1 year, and then became the Houston Astros because Colt 45 is trademarked. Colt 45 said, you can't use that logo on your uniform. But they were able to use it for 1 year. So Peter wanted to make samples to send to Major League Baseball of Colt 45. He sent 3 jerseys in, and they weren't getting done because we're doing the Cardinal uniform. Well, when we get the Cardinals done, we'll do that stuff for the guy. I said, well, he really needs it. Well, we got it done. We sent the samples off to Peter, and Peter made his samples, got his license, and then over the next, couple of decades, more than 2 decades, we did lettering for Mr. Capolino. He would call up and say, hey, do you have a pattern from 1945 Detroit Tigers? I'd go into our old files, find out if we had a pattern. Yes. Well, I'm going to make a Detroit Tiger 1945 jersey. And then we'd have the actual patterns. Different times, if we didn't have the pattern, he would send me pictures. We would draw the lettering off of photographs and then make a replica jersey. To this day, Peter is a good friend. Some of these jerseys, he sent me a couple of them from a couple of his friends, so I could show them to you today. And really, he brought about a great interest in old-time baseball by doing this. And the shirt that Ron DeShear is wearing is one of those 1920s style jersey. And if you don't know who Ron DeShear is, she was a comedian. She also had her own program on USA Network from about '89 for about 10 years, Up All Night with Rhonda. And she would talk about the movie that they were showing that night. And today, if you get on QVC or whatever, you'll see that she sells her own women's undergarments. So, not quite the size she was back then, but that happens to all of us. That's a black bat. So yeah, bats have been both black, and bats have been black and gold mostly, have been the different bats. And the bats have been different sizes, that the birds have been different sizes. The bird is much plumper today than it was just maybe 10 years ago. The birds got a little wider on the current uniforms today. One last real quick story. Well, I'll wait for it. Hold on one second. Oh, and one last, here on this here, one thing they'll change for next year, they made the letters much tinier this year on the uniforms, and nobody liked it. They're supposed to go back to the bigger letters again on the shirts for next year. So the companies do listen to the fans and what they want. For 50 years, this dyed-in-the-wool Cub fan has taken care of the Cardinals because of his love of the game and the tradition of St. Louis. I did my best every year to make sure that they were on the field, they looked good. I delivered jerseys to the clubhouse at the beginning of seasons. I would go meet them when they had to have a new uniform made for somebody who was just brought up from the minors. Oh, we got to have this for tonight's game. We go get it. We fix it up. We go deliver it to them. So for baseball, for the Cardinals, and for all of that, this Cub fan has taken care of the Cardinals and appreciate all of you. I did one little funny thing one year. I went through the factory. I put on a black cape and had a little black cap on, and I came through the factory and I went, black cats over all the Cardinal uniforms, and all the ladies and guys working there, get out of here, Dave, get out of here. And I'm going, black cats. I go home that night, I come back to work the next day, and they all start laughing at me. I'm going, what? Well, Mrs. Levy had the priest from her church come in this morning with holy water and sprinkle all the Cardinal uniforms. So, real quickly, flip to the last page. Baseballs have changed very much over time. You can come up here. I got a Lou Brock autograph ball here, a World Series from 2013 ball, and just a couple you can pick up and handle this if you want to. Just how they make the baseballs today. They're made in Costa Rica, in Rawlings factory. It's a Rawlings baseball. I've seen them made. It's quite fascinating. The leather is still out of cow leather, and it's cut out by hand. They have, like I say, die cuts. They have a die like this, shaped in that shape of the, and the gentlemen that cut out the patterns, they know where the best leather is, because you get out to the outside of the big piece of leather, it's a little thicker. So the inside leather are used for the game balls. The outside leather then is used for these things that they sell or promote, or for other leagues and that. But only the very best leather is used for the actual Major League Baseball uniforms. It's about time to say goodbye. Let's do it one more time. A one, You ready? A 2, a 3. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back to it. Good for the home team. If they don't win, it's the same. It's 1, 2, 3 strikes around at the old ball game. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dave. That was fabulous.
If you have a few minutes, come back, take a look at anything here, and enjoy. I didn't show you a stamping pattern, how they did put the stamping on when the ladies would do the embroidery on those jerseys. So take a look. You got any questions, I'll be up here and be glad to answer them for you.
Every 108 years, you get a world championship.
All right, you're out of here.